I'm Victoria, and I will be hosting tonight's webinar with LHOF. And LHOF is an organization, is a nonprofit organization that supports underfunded schools in rural areas in China. And usually every summer we would go back to China to those schools to teach the kids and our English and stuff like that. But since this year, because of the pandemic, we have started doing more local outreaches, which is what this webinar is. And my guest today is Miss McKinney. So for the past 3 years, I attended Trinity Prep, and in my 7th and 8th grade year, Miss McKinney was my history and civics teacher. And she is basically the main reason why I'm actually interested in history and civics today. So, Miss McKinney, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tatiana McKinney. You can call me Miss McKinney, or you can call me Tati, since this is kind of informal. And I am the middle social science teacher at Trinity Preparatory School. I've been there, this is going on like my 7th year, and really just trying to encourage students to be engaged in content, and really trying to find new ways to meet students where they are. I know a lot of times many people don't like history or civics, they want to sleep in most of those classes. If you agree, you can like raise the roof here. Usually that's the case, but I try to come up with like different ways to make school engaging, and according to Victoria and Friends, stress them out. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do in my classroom, and some of the activities that have become really helpful to students in finding their voice, their authenticity, new ways to learn, as well as new ways to maintain that content. And do you want me to share my screen, Victoria? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Can everybody see my screen okay?
Awesome. I can see it.
Awesome. Thank you, Victoria. I feel like we back in the Google Meets part. So I call this
yeah.
today, yeah, right. I call this today finding new approaches to learning in middle school. So I'm going to set up our agenda. And if you notice, I put my Bitmoji in the front automatically. It looks like me to an extent when my hair is looking fly, but if it's not looking fly, it doesn't look perfectly like me. I think using Bitmojis or using different sort of unusual ways in a PowerPoint is also really beneficial to students, because a lot of students are on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram, Facebook. They think it's for old people. So I think it's beneficial to have different ways to keep people engaged, even in a PowerPoint presentation. So you'll see my Bitmoji show up a couple of times in this presentation. I'm setting an agenda today for us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came to education, so you can understand why I approach my classroom in the way I help my students in that way, my educational background, so where I got my degrees from, the methods I used to teach, and I'll talk about some examples of that, and how that approach is seen in my classroom. And then I do have some examples today. So Victoria has graciously let me show her rap video, and then I have another
rap. Yeah, that was so fun.
that I'll show, so you can see how students use rap or music in my class to learn content and material. And then if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer those questions or engage you in any way. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I am actually someone who came from the University of Missouri, Columbia. When I got my undergrad degree, education was not my main focus. I actually got my BA in communications with a double minor in leadership and public service. And it was actually with my minor where I really kind of got that love of education. I actually tutored at the Arabic school in the community and really fell in love with the family, the culture in the school. And it really encouraged me to really want to go into education. Unlike a lot of students, I wasn't super, like, I didn't love school. school like a lot of students did. I had to find different subjects or different things that I cared about, and I kind of focused in on that and went with that in general. I actually moved to Washington, D.C. I've lived all over the world and all over the place, and worked for a law and policy organization. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to make a lot of money and kind of sit in that. And then what ended up happening is I decided I was going to help someone with their program and went into helping students with debate and presentation, and ended up working at a charter school in New York City, and really loved working with students, loved working with teachers, and really got a love of education. And I realized I was kind of at that plateau in my education fields. And my friend was like, do you think you want to go international? And I'm like, you know what? I think that's a good idea. So I actually moved to Beijing, China for a year, and lived in China teaching English through Disney English at a language learning center there. Fell in love with the culture in China, and all the people and the food and just the experience. It was pretty incredible. I wish I'd learned more Chinese and Mandarin. I know a very small amount. I knew how to get home and back. And some of my students taught me not very nice words, but it was really a great and interesting experience to really get an opportunity to see education in an international context. And I realized the way I was teaching students there. So we were doing I was teaching ESL, but we were active. They were like running. We were doing activities. They were singing. It was a whole interesting concept. I was like, I think I can apply that to a classroom in the United States, because students need to feel like they're active, visual, like all these different ways. And so I was like, I think this will work. So I actually came back to the United States. I really wanted to stay overseas. My mom got sick. So I came back over here, started working in Memphis at a school, and ended up deciding that I was going to teach at an independent school in my major. So I actually got accepted to Sarah Lawrence College and got my master's in women's history, and wanted to use that. So I ended up in Trinity Prep. My first couple of years at Trinity Prep, my first year was rough because I was trying to fit into a traditional model that wasn't really my style, and the students could tell it wasn't as authentic. So I realized my second, third, fourth year, I had to do something different because the students needed something different to really care about school. And so I actually went back to school and got my master's in education and curriculum and instruction with like an emphasis in history, because I wanted to be the best that I could be, not just for myself, but for the students I was teaching. And I wanted the students not only to see themselves in the content, but to actually see that they could find their voice in something that is not always easy to do. So originally, a lot of times when you sit in a history class, and many of you probably can agree that you're reading a textbook, you're looking at the teacher, and you're regurgitating the information. For me, even in high school, that didn't work for me. I found out that I really liked using music, and I really liked having students get up or feel like they were a part of that lesson. So I wanted to find a way to be able to encourage that and incorporate that into my classroom. And so these are some of the ways that I've been able to do that. So I really believe in 4 C's. It kind of shapes everything that I do in education, particularly in my classroom and in lesson planning. So I want students to be critically thinking. I want them to be creative, because I meet so many students that come in who are artists, who are gamers, who like all different kind of things, and they want to find ways to bring their passion into the classroom. And so I try to figure out ways that our activities can mirror what different people are interested in. And so a lot of students don't like to work with other people. They hate group work. They avoid it like the plague. But as we know, in a 21st century setting, if you want to work for Google or WhatsApp or TikTok or any of these things, you have to be able to work with people that are different than you, that look different than you, that have different learning styles, different ways of working. And so I want to build sort of a business model into my classroom, and that's what I make the effort to do. So I really try to make it very student-led. So we do gallery walks where students are walking around. A lot of the times I'm not lecturing. So I do give content to students, but it's not the main focus of the class, because I feel like that takes away from somebody having a choice. And I think choice is really important for students and for people when you're trying to learn content. So we do Socratic seminars where you have to annotate documents and really unpack the text. What does it mean to you? what does it mean to what you're learning? What does it mean to what's happening in the world? And so another thing that I also do is Kagan cooperative learning strategies. So I really feel like you have to be able to collaborate and work with other people. And the way you do that is to kind of figure out how you think and who you are. So we do think-based shares and expert groups in different ways for students to get opportunities to work with people in different settings. And so one of the main things that works for 8th grade is problem and project-based approach. So as Victoria can attest, they do the 20 time project, which is a genius hour project. You have to pick something you care about, a problem that you want to solve, and create a product. So students build businesses out of this. I've had a kid build a successful app that they came up with. Victoria and her partner started a successful tutoring, basically like their own little tutoring company at the school. And they had a lot of kids come in to get tutoring. I've had a student before COVID, they've put on different events at the school, raising in total $4,800 for Parkinson's research, as well as Orlando during the Pulse nightclub shooting, as well as ALS. Students have done that. And some students have actually raised money for missions overseas and have been able to take resources that they've collected to give to students in need in different places in South America, especially fresh water. So students take what they're passionate about and they get 6 months to work on it. They have to pitch the presentation like they're in a real business. Not only pitching that presentation, they have to do a TED Talk, a 5-minute TED Talk to explain how they went through the process. And they have to create their own sort of infographic to explain to me how they're going to meet their deadlines. And they blog as well. So I get to follow them through the process of how they learn, the successes they have, and then some of the times when things don't go right, because failure is important. I know we're all afraid of it, but it is important and it helps you kind of figure out who you are. And that leads to, in my class, we do simulations, which kids get very upset with me about, and role play. So town hall meetings, they have to set it up like they're in a real town hall meeting like we have. We do UN seminars similar to Model UN, but it's on climate change, immigration simulations to understand the current immigration process and what other people go through, and learning how it's difficult and not as easy as people think, as well as in history, we do the battle of the trench warfare. So I turn the class into a trench and they get to try to see what that's like. And we do different activities to really give students an opportunity to see history in a different way and to live that. And I think debate is really important. Trying to get that experience in argumentative work is really important. And a lot of kids who have done debate in my class now are in the forensics team at Trinity Preparatory School. So all these activities have really pushed a lot of students I know who are very quiet, out of their comfort zone. But again, even if you're a shy student, I give you the choice. So as you're going to see soon with the rap battles, I've had students that don't particularly want to get up in front of people and rap, and they have the opportunity to record their rap and still get to show it to the classroom, because I feel like the classroom, it's okay for it to be uncomfortable sometimes because it's a civics and history class, you're learning about different subjects, but it's not okay for it to be unsafe. So students should be able to find their voice, their authenticity, and really see themselves in the classroom. And finally, with that, I really try to do a lot with diverse reading and writing assignments. So there's a lot of research involved in my classroom in all those different activities, a lot of different types of writing, from document-based questions, which is really good prep for AP and IB, if that's what you want to do, as well as poetry. So being able to find different ways to write, read, interact, argue, critically think, engage, be active are all really good ways that I try to encourage my students to grow and learn as people. And so this is all centered in a multicultural approach and curriculum. So I try to bring in diverse voices and texts and experiences and critical events to students so that they have the opportunity to see themselves in the classroom. I think a lot of times in history, it's taught very traditionally. So sometimes you sit in the classroom and you're like, where do I fit into this whole narrative? Where am I? And so I think it's really important for students to feel like they're a part of it, that they're invested in it, and it's authentic to them, because then people have a better experience when those things are happening. So these are some of the methods and approaches that I use in my classroom to really get down to what's important, which is the content and the skill base that they're building. So one of the things I mentioned was rap battles. And so rap battles in my classroom started, Hamilton came out, and it like was a hit for everyone. And I found students coming in my class, not even then at that time, it was just starting. So people were thinking they all could rap. And so everybody was coming in, rapping, could memorize the whole thing, knew it all, and were just really excited. And so a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I really like rap music, and I really like the idea of students finding a new way to articulate a historical content. I think this might work in my classroom. So I actually introduced it. All my students were like, oh no, this sucks. No way, I don't want to do this. And that was exactly how it sounded to me, the teacher. And I was like, I think y'all are going to be all right. And so I actually rapped for them. So I did a model rap, which is what I usually do, and show them how I set up my lyrics. We use different programs to help them. So they have a program that helps them rhyme, which is Rhyme Zone. So you can actually go and find different ways to kind of play with the writing there. And I used an event that Hamilton had not covered in their lyrics fully. So we used the Whiskey Rebellion for that in particular. So the students couldn't copy the content or the lyrics, they had to bring up their own. So they have to do an extensive amount of research. You have to know the difference between the two historical figures in which you're going to be battling. You have to diss. So you do throw disses in, and it has to be appropriate. So you can't like attack the person, you have to attack the person's idea, similar to a paper. And then you have to diversify your background in order to really make sure that your rap is overall really good and argued correctly. So I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like when we had 3 students doing their rap. Some people dress up.
Signing the Declaration, we have a proclamation. Washington, you know what's right in all your mind. Now I see your point, Jefferson, but I don't agree. Because frankly, I think that we should make them flee. Send the artillery and burn out this fire. Because once in a while it's nice to make things be dire. Can't we just solve this piece of leak? Remove the tax and make it easy. There was a king, but that was the past. We are a nation, we're free at last. Washington decided we were Jefferson got his facts wrong. Don't worry, I don't. Oh, facts. Hamilton, I see your side. Yeah, you win this time. We should send an army. This is our opportunity. Oh, we need the dollars. Really? We got them debts. Tell Jeff, shut your yap. Let's send that army. Jeffy, we don't have time for whiners. We have to deal with the unruly planners. Say your name.
So some students dress up, they perform, they actually put a performance together. They have different parts. They actually work with each other so that they can actually, if they are throwing disses, which is what happens in Hamilton as well, that it's appropriate, but they also know what's going to be said, so they have time to actually prepare. A lot of times with actual rap battles, that wouldn't be the case. You would do it without the preparation, but these are 7th and 8th graders. They really need the preparation and the time to actually be able to put that together. So sometimes kids have like so much fun with it, and they go above and beyond. And then we also have times where students are like, I'm just trying to get through this 1 minute that I have right here without embarrassing myself. But this is just a really cool opportunity for students to be creative. They have to collaborate, they have to research, and they really have to unpack the content and the issue and the belief between these 2 individuals to actually effectively argue the points of these 2 people. So I usually record, I ask the students if that's okay, because I have to grade it at a later time. And then I actually upload it to YouTube unlisted. So this is not all over the internet, to be mindful of child laws. And then I actually send it to the students in private, like send them an actual link, unlist it, and then they can watch with their families, and parents can see it as well. So they could have it as prosperity. So I still have students that come to me and say, hey, Miss McKinney, my rap helped me pass my AP test. Like I totally remember Jefferson and Hamilton because I was like rapping and they were wondering why my head was going. It really helped me. So this is like a different way for students to learn. This is actually Victoria, and this is this is
oh, it's this one.
Did you want me
okay,
to
so yeah, you can show it. I'm just gonna say for this one, for some reason at the beginning I couldn't stop laughing.
You want me to show the one from 7th grade, or do you want me to show this one? I have both.
You can show this one. You can show this one.
All right, so this is this year with COVID protocols. So students actually have to have their mask on, and so a lot of students were really frustrated because it's really actually hard to rap with a mask because there's so much air coming in and out. So a lot of students were really even more creative. They would put some kind of background or something with their rap as they went, or had different props. So that was a really big thing this year, big performances, because they had to be mindful of social distancing. So I'm gonna go ahead and play Victoria's rap. Are you okay with me just playing this, Victoria?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm straight out of Oxford with the science degree. Fighting for life and liberty, these are our rights. Our honest nature and core, mankind's main highlights. I'm living my life for you, can't take my freedom away. Our individual rights to be the king any day. Authority keeps peace, stop with the monologue. You follow the king around like you're his loyal lapdog. We're always on the Civil War in 1649. I'm fighting through it in any way, in any fight. Not a declaration, but let's be honest here, dude, we're running a nation. Fighting is wrong, however, we can prevent. If everyone just listen to the king, not dissent. Listening to the king will promise safety and joy. Don't listen to the king, you're treating him like a toy. You'll be the death of all of us. I'll report you to the king, because you're a sus. We gonna run the country, we need a solid pen. Let's listen to the king, but let's take a stand. Oh wait. Unless he is a fool, unless you want to be in court, no need him to rule. In the state of nature, I believe all men are equal. We need a revolution, the people need a sequel. You know, only us men need to represent. The king can't just order and women make no sense. We can't trust our rights with a single sovereign, because if we fail, we all experience pain again. Now to the hierarchy, go and find a real job. You want to skip us up our rights. But cross, in exchange for rights, we get protection. Perfection. Rights are nice, but those we should not crave. And what humans will be if we end up in a grave?
And actually, Victoria did it a second time for the high schoolers because they were learning Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau and Hobbes and the Enlightenment philosophers for their class for AP. And they did it better for them than they did it for our class. So sad. But this is another way that students are able to do that. And you notice there was two different subjects. So I usually do a philosopher's rap battle because it lends itself to philosophy. This idea of having different beliefs and different ways that you want to approach things. I do the Jefferson and Hamilton Whiskey Rebellion. And then I also do one sometimes for the Civil Rights Movement, as well as looking at it from W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington's perspective. So we try to offer, for me, I try to give students 2 opportunities to do different rap battles, one in the fall and one in the second semester. So the fall is usually their introduction to it. It's always a little uncomfortable for a lot of students. And you can see, even though there's moments where students mess up, they keep going because they're invested in all the work that they've put in. And some students will ask me to do it multiple times to try to get it right. So you'll see that really students are invested in it. And a lot of the times, particularly for the Enlightenment philosophers, it's mostly male-based. So I also introduce female philosophers in as well. So students can take those perspectives as well and incorporate that so that people feel like they can find their voice or find different ways that they can rap in these rap battles. And rap battles have become sort of this thing for my class. And even though it's really important, I always tell the students, like, you're getting that content as well. You don't realize that you're going to keep this and it's going to be beneficial to you, especially for the philosopher rap battle. Students did it really well on the quiz because they were able to just remember a lot of the philosophy that they were articulating in rap. So this is kind of examples of different activities and stuff that I've done in my class. So you can see that different ways, our class is always moving. So I did an interest group simulation, particularly for civics, because interest groups are really important to the political process. So students actually took the roles of different representatives, Republican and Democrat alike. I like to mix it up. I'm not pushing an agenda. I want students to see how different people make different decisions in our political climate. And then other students took roles of different interest groups. So the NRA, PETA, the different organizations that are representing different interests within the government, and they have to actually go and lobby their classmates who are representatives and present an argument as to why they should be supported and why the legislation should be passed on their behalf. And I think this is a really cool way for students to get an idea of how representatives think, what their political policies look like, and how do interest groups lobby? They make a lot of money. What does that look like? And how to effectively communicate your ideas after learning about that. And students do such a good job. And actually their classmates get to then decide who was the top different groups, and those groups get extra credit. So they were able to effectively lobby, and that adds even more points to them. And they can also have bragging rights that they were able to effectively lobby their classmates. If you look at the bottom, you can see our other rap battles, and you can see that we had Google Meets open. So this year with COVID, we had to have Google Meets. So a lot of students who were remote were able to rap too. We had some scuffles trying to figure out how to make it work with a hybrid model, but we were able to figure it out by allowing students to record. And that really helped a lot in that process. At the top, you'll also notice that students are in a small circle. What we did this year is I also do an activity on gerrymandering. So gerrymandering is where you're able to separate different districts in order for different political parties to gain an advantage. So students actually all got different areas, and they had to gerrymander those particular areas. And really kind of break down how they, if they were political pundits, how would they break up these areas in order to try to make their political party win? So students represent different sides of the aisle, and they had to work together to try and gerrymander those activities. So these are concepts that are difficult, but they're learning about them in civics, and I'm teaching in a different way. You also might notice that I have pictures of the campaign projects here. So students actually run a campaign. They get 2 weeks to run a political campaign. They get to choose their political party that they want to run on. And I'm a little extra is what my students say. So they all get a budget set for their political campaign. They can get sponsored by interest groups, and I throw different scenarios at them as they're running their campaign. They have to come up with a campaign manager. They have to use campaign propaganda, and they have to do their speeches and all those different parts. And that's usually a pretty extensive project for the students. This year with COVID, I kind of broke it down a little bit more to make it a little bit more easier given what was going on. But the students then presented their information. I had kids who made merch. So they made shirts and tags and different things and put them around the classroom and really like lobbied people to get those votes. And they had to present their budget at the end. How did they spend their money for their campaign? Who did that money go to? And how are interest groups and media playing a part in their campaign project? If you look at the bottom as well, I talked about the trench warfare. So trench war in World War I is a really popular topic. And unfortunately with COVID last year, a lot of students didn't get the opportunity to do that, but the kids this year did because we were able to do it safely. So we turned the classroom into a trench. And students get the opportunity to see what it was like during World War I. They'll never really know, obviously, because you can't fully understand what was going on, but they get the opportunity to see the actions that were taken. So they have paper and they ball them up and they throw them around, which is kind of like grenades during that time. And inside they write what would happen. So leg got blown off or gangrene or whatever those different things would be. And then they have like different water sprayed in the air, like the poison that would be coming through, and they have to crawl and they're trying to do strategy to try to win with their group. And it's noisy because it's like all the sounds that would be there from World War I. So I try to give the students an opportunity to see what it's like in different historical concepts. I do the same thing when they're doing factory work. So when factories come into play, students actually get the opportunity. I set up a factory in my classroom and they get to see what it feels like to be on an assembly line. And it's always an interesting part. They have to change roles and stuff like that. So I do a whole bunch of different things, including mock trials with students. So they take on the roles of lawyers and witnesses in a mock trial, and they have to argue effectively. They have to write their opening and closing statements, their direct and cross-examination questions, and they have to prepare their witnesses. So it teaches them how to argue, how to critically think, how to work with different groups. And a lot of the students that worked with that encouraged and got excited about mock trials. So we started a mock trial team out of middle school.
Mock trials are also usually very chaotic and hilarious.
A little crazy a lot of times because students really get into it and people want to win. And so I try to explain to a lot of the students that this is a learning opportunity, not a competition, but that never really settles. They always want to win. That's the end goal. And usually the winning team gets an extra 10 points added to their grade. So they get really excited about that opportunity and they really take on the roles of these lawyers and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to see these activities that students do. And so one of the last things I do want to talk about is crime scene in the classroom. So being able to bring in CSI and different things into the classroom to really encourage students to really go and utilize primary and secondary sources. So Boston Massacre for history is always a huge topic. So I decided a couple of years ago, I was scrolling through Pinterest and I saw a teacher had turned her classroom into a crime scene for a particular event. And I was like, oh, I can do this. So I took on that opportunity. I bought all this stuff from Amazon and Party City, which are my friends, and set up the crime scene in the classroom. And so as you can see, I bought snowballs and then I tried to put little rocks in them, didn't really work out. But I was able to sort of set this up and students are able to come in. I recorded myself with like a mustache and different things to act as if I was like the detective that had sent them back in time. So they watch the video, crack up at me, and then they go through and they actually analyze all the different evidence and they can go through as a group. And then we talk about the evidence at the end and they talk about what they think actually occurred in the Boston Massacre crime scene. And so as you can see, students are kind of going around. I have clipboards. So when students do like these kind of gallery walk activities, a lot of times they're just writing on their hand and they can get frustrated. And so I bought a whole bunch of clipboards. So anytime we do activities where they have to go on, they can get a clipboard, clip it, and they can actually walk around and be able to do that. I also upload different documents to Canvas because we use that as a learning management system. So some students, they just don't want to walk around. They just don't feel like that's the thing for them. They can actually go back to their desk and actually work back and forth. If they want to walk around, they can still have access to those documents if they can't be here, specifically to students that were remote or students that may have any kind of disability seen or unseen. They're able to participate in the activity as well. So as you can see, I try to do a lot of different things in my classroom to really engage students. And I find that if it's authentic and they have the opportunity to feel invested in the activity that we're doing, they tend to succeed and engage in the content. And a lot of times people are always saying, oh my God, you know, my child is not the right student for your classroom. My kid wants to just sit down, take the test and get out. And as you know, each and every one of you have had teachers that you feel like you don't really connect with, and that's okay. I'm not the right teacher for every student, but I do feel like there are students that are eager for a different style of learning. That's not traditional, where they can kind of figure it out, find the opportunity to succeed. As we know, we have students who love to take tests and they love to take quizzes and they do excellent in that. But then we also have students that aren't always the best at quizzes and tests. And so this gives them an opportunity to shine in other ways and then work on that in a different opportunity to kind of work to get better on trying to find ways to figure out what their learning style is and what works best for them. So I try to make my classroom engaging and fun. And I want them to get the content and I want them to get the skill, but I also want them to remember something from it and be able to take what they're learning in this classroom and apply it to other areas of their life and in other areas of subjects that they care about. So I work really hard to try to do that in my classroom. And you can kind of see different photos in the back from my classroom. So I try to put up different posters of different people and different groups in my classroom because I think it's important for people to see themselves when they're walking into the classroom, to know that they're going to be seen and they're going to be heard. And I think it's really important to come up with different ways to engage the material and not just teach from a textbook. In our school, actually, for civics and history, we don't use our textbooks anymore. We basically source different resources, and we try to pull in primary and secondary sources. We also use different websites that are credible. So like iCivics is a really great one. A lot of teachers in the Florida public schools use it, and we use it as well to make sure students are meeting up with the standards that's going into the public school. And then for US history, we pull different primary and secondary sources, and we try to make sure that students are getting a well-rounded view of history so they are prepped for AP and any other class that they would like to take. So one of the things that I really love about being a teacher is I never live the same day twice. And it's always incredible to be able to meet different students who have different learning styles and are looking for different things. And I think it's really important in this 21st century for students to get different ideas of their education and things that they can do, because many students are going into different creative jobs that doesn't require them to sit in a desk from a 9 to 5, but they actually have to engage, be creative, collaborate, and do all these different things. And I try to set my classroom up to prepare them to be effective in this new environment. And hopefully you were able to get a little snapshot of what I do in my classroom. If you do have any questions that you want to email me, I've included my email here as well. And if you have any questions you want to ask, I'll answer those questions as well.
I just have a quick question. So whenever I'm in your class, I just always feel like more relaxed and like really calm and like very like, I make jokes without like feeling like, oh, the teacher's going to yell at me or something like that. Mm-hmm. And to give that kind of like a very calm, very happy vibe in the classroom. And I think for like the tutoring I've done and the teaching I've done, it's always something that I've struggled with. So I just want to know how you do that.
I think one of the things that I've realized as an educator is that a lot of times when I get students in my class, or the traditional way that students have been taught is that there's always like the student-teacher relationship and your teacher is not really approachable, and that you do the assignment and you leave and that's it. And I think one of the main reasons why my class works for some students is the relationships that I'm able to build. I see you all as people and not just as a student coming in for an A. I want to see you as a whole child. So I want to understand what makes you laugh. I want to understand what content you actually want to hear. I want to understand how you learn, how you work with different people, not be in your Kool-Aid or your business, but actually like know you as a student. And I think I try really hard to be approachable and authentic, because I would hope when I was growing up that my teachers would do the same for me, and not see me just as a letter or as just a number in their class, but as somebody who's worthy of being seen, heard, and understood. So I try to do that with you all and create that calming environment. And it usually starts at the beginning of the school year. So we try to set that expectation of what you all want to see in your classroom. And then we try to, as a group, hold each other accountable. And if somebody can't abide by that or do that, then there has to be a conversation on how we can restore that bravery and peace and safe climate into our classroom back.
I have a question. So going back to like at the beginning of the school year and like kind of building expectations and everything. So are there any specific like icebreaker activities or like any beginning of the year activities that you have that allow students to kind of like dive into the classroom setting and like stuff like that?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things. A lot of times when you go to school the first day, it's usually the syllabus and everybody's kind of droning on about the syllabus and what you need to expect. I think including things like escape rooms, like really trying to build right away, an opportunity for students to get to know each other. They're going to spend a whole year together. You might as well start with an activity where they can critically think and work together. I think also using contracting, or what they like to call setting group norms. So at that first week, really having students kind of come up with ideas on like what they would like to see in their classroom and actually putting pen to paper. So maybe getting a big poster board in the classroom and everybody writing the ideas of what they would like to see, how they want to feel in the classroom. And it seems but actually, if you set those expectations early, then everybody's holding each other accountable, especially if you're in a history or social science type classroom where you're going to talk about difficult subjects. You want to make sure that everyone feels like they can be a part of that conversation and they feel comfortable sharing. Trust is built over time and it's not given. So that's really important to kind of set up. I think it's also really important for it to last multiple days. So not just doing an escape room one time and then kind of jumping into the content. I think building in like 4 different days where students are getting to know each other, whether that's writing a letter to themselves or doing different activities, sharing, getting to know each other. A lot of people do the game where you put a lot of different things that people might have done in their life. So went skydiving or, travel to Rome, and kids have to go around and like sign their name on the things that they've done. I think it's really important to kind of come up with those varieties of activities to really make sure that all the students are getting to know each other. And with Trinity Prep, they also include a field trip at the beginning of the school year for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to go on a field trip to I think it's the Pathfinders, where they do like a lot of rock climbing and zip lining, or to the different ranches where they go and like hang out for like a couple of days to get to know each other. I think it's really important to kind of set those things up at the beginning, because you find that your class goes a lot smoother when students all feel like, hey, we're all being held accountable to the same standards and it's equitable. And we are all kind of setting those intentions and kind of working through those activities. So I usually start, before I go right into content, we start with like understanding historical thinking. And so a lot of different activities for students to work together and for me to see how they work together and kind of help them build those skills early. And then in civics, I really try to get them contracting. They have to write different poems. They have to do escape rooms and different activities to kind of get to know each other. With COVID, we had to like kind of change it up a little bit, but I think that's really important, those kind of activities.
That's so cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, if no one else has a question, I have another one, if you don't mind. So I was just wondering, like, have you ever had this scenario, or have you ever had to deal with like students that are a little slow to come out of their shell or aren't as engaging? Like, how do you deal with that?
So actually here, every year I get a couple of students who tell me right off the bat, Miss McKinney, I hate this class. This is not for me. I don't want to be here. Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't understand why you have us doing all this. Why can't I just sit here and not, engage in this content? And a lot of times I think for instructors, you want to take it personal and you feel like it's an attack. But a lot for me, I think it's an opportunity for a student to really learn about themselves. And a lot of times when a student is saying that, they really are nervous about the experience and they really are frustrated because this is not something that they're used to. And so what I usually do is I allow it to take time. So for the student this year, she was really frustrated a good portion of the year. And she and I had a conversation and I asked her, I said, what do you want in your learning? Like, what do you want to get out of this class? I was like, I know you don't like the activities. I know you don't necessarily like the content, but what do you want to get out of this class? And she said, well, I came from a different type of school and we didn't do this kind of thing. So it's really hard for me, being me and being a shy student, to really step out of my boundary. And I have no friends in this class. So it's hard for me when we do group projects to find people to work with. I said, would you like me to help you kind of figure out who to work with and kind of help you through the activities? And like, let's talk about different ways that maybe we can modify some of these things to help for you. And she was like, yeah. So she and I got together. I started kind of helping her find different groups and kind of putting her with different people. And she was able to kind of find a group that worked for her. And then I noticed throughout the school year, her grades started to get higher. She started to actively participate without me really initiating any of those things. It was really trying to, instead of just being upset or frustrated that a student doesn't like me or doesn't want to be in the class, that doesn't bother me. I've been teaching a really long time. I think what she really needed to do is she really wanted me to hear her and understand where it is she was coming from. A lot of times students are coming with a lot of different experiences. When I was teaching in public school, it's poverty. A lot of times they were hungry and frustrated and had a lot of things going on, and school was the last thing that they were thinking about. So I still bring that kind of intensity and thought process into the private school setting, because even though students have more maybe privilege in some instances, they still go through things. And so I really try to sit down and talk to students and figure out what it is they want to see in their classroom and what they want to see in their learning. I have gamers who, like, this is not my thing, but when we have to create a game, or I allowed some kid to use Roblox to build a game for a class before, or create a TikTok account for something that they wanted to do because the student was really passionate about TikTok. I think being able to bring in what you like in the class, or feeling like your teacher is not only teaching the content, but also accommodating you and giving you choice, is really important. And I try to do that when students are not always motivated in my class.
That's such a great approach. Thank you for sharing.
For that 1 year when you were teaching in China, how did you like deal with the language boundaries?
I think one of the things that really helped for me, particularly in the classroom, is I had a language learning assistant. Her name was Sally, and she was fluent, and she was from the area. And so she and I actually talked a lot about the classroom and the students, and she really helped me understand how to incorporate what I was trying to do with what students were already kind of going through. And I made my effort to like really learn about the culture and the families. So the student wasn't just in my class. I knew who their mom was. I knew that they had two sisters. I knew that they liked to go to Starbucks after class. Like I knew that they had 3 or 4 math classes before my class. I knew about them. And I thought that was really important because even though there was a language barrier there, I could tell that I still needed to build a relationship. And I also made efforts to learn what I could in the amount of time that I had. So a lot of people taught me different phrases that could work for me, which allowed me to be able to get around. And it also really helped as well that we kind of built in different cultural aspects to try to make sure students feel comfortable. I don't believe in somebody fully having to assimilate. I don't think that's fair. I think it's important for people to be able to keep their culture and who they are as people and then incorporate that into what they're trying to learn. So I thought that really trying to figure out how to get English to meet them where they were was really important. So that helped for me. And for me, really tackling it, it was hard. It's hard when it's a culture shock. You come in and you don't speak the language. I think also helped living in New York because New York is very diverse and the trains are extra. So when I was able to go to China, I was able to utilize a lot of the skills that I learned there to be able to do that. And I really just tried to make friends and go out and learn the culture, go to different historical sites and stuff like that to try to do as much as I could to be a part of where I was and not expecting people to meet me where I was.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Are a lot of students from different places or interested in history or education in any instance?
I think the group for today were mostly like middle school and high school students from around Florida, basically. So yeah.
Anybody really passionate about history?
I really like politics. I mean,
Personally,
and
I
I
like
do.
history. Oh, sorry.
You said you like history?
Yeah, it's one of
Do
my
you feel
favorite
like
subjects.
do you feel like your classes are meeting you where you are and you feel like you're engaged in the class?
Yeah, I have great teachers at my school who really are engaging with history.
Excellent. That's so good. I'm glad to hear that. Does everybody else feel like they're getting engaged in history, or do you feel like you're learning a lot of the material outside of class?
Actually, for me, like this past year, I just finished a push,
Mhm.
and for being an online student, it was just reading through the textbook and taking notes and then quizzes at the end of every week. So I actually really like your project-based learning. And based on that, I have a question like, what percentage of your class is project-based learning and traditional?
Second half of class, usually about 80% is project-based because it's their capstone. So it is built into the program. In the first semester, I would say a good 60%. They get a lot of long-term projects and projects are incorporated into it. And then I kind of sprinkle in role plays or simulations or different activities as well to kind of mix it up. But we do a lot of project stuff in civics in particular because I just feel like it's a lot more helpful for students to work together, but then you're able to see kind of civics in a different light. And actually there's a lot of studies right now where people really want to build civics into civic action classes. So not just learning about civic engagement, but like actually going to town hall meetings or going to the Hill where you are talking to representatives, having them come into your classroom, having students engage in the content. People feel like that's a way more effective way to teach civics or history classes than a traditional method. So it's cool to see that other schools have teachers that are engaging and they're really loving their history class. That says something that the climate is changing and people are changing the way that they educate students. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Any other questions? Hopefully I didn't put nobody to sleep. I can only see a couple of people.
I think for history, what's really helpful for me too is like musicals and stuff. Like Hamilton came out, and that got me really into like that part of history, and also like Six the musical that I've been like listening to a lot recently. So like learning about like Henry VIII and stuff like that. So yeah.
I'm glad to see that music is being incorporated. Is music being incorporated into other classes of students in here?
When I took geometry over the summer, my math teacher would like play music while we took tests. I don't know if that counts, but
Anybody an aspiring rapper? No? Okay. Anybody want to go into the field of TikTok? They want to be a TikTok star? No? Okay. I have students that want to be TikTok stars. So I just wanted to check. That's awesome.
yeah.
Any other questions? I'll answer questions or try to answer a question.
Oh yeah, just a fun question. Where did you like come up with the concept of vrooming?
Oh, vroom, vroom, get out of the room. Actually, a student 2 years ago said vroom, and then I think I said vroom, vroom, and then all the kids yelled, get out of the room. So they kind of built that themselves. And then they created a 5th period Instagram because supposedly all my 5th periods were lit, whatever that means. I'm not in on the lingo anymore. I'm getting old. So they built the vroom vroom, get out of the room, and it became sort of a staple for my classes. And then other teachers tried to use it, and I guess the kids were like, no, it doesn't work. But now it's kind of something that a lot of students say. And so people make an effort to figure out how many times they can get kicked out, which I think is really sad, but I guess that's like the cool thing to do nowadays. Students like are eager to get vroom vroomed out of the room. That's where that came up.
Wait, what's the record?
I think a student this year, like 7 times, I think is the record for getting vroom vrooms. And they were like really excited, like at the end, and they were like yelling, and like I was like, it's really sad, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
I think it was in your class. I think that was
Aziza?
no, I think it was I think it was Carlos last year.
Oh yeah.
I think he had the record, yeah. Is everybody excited to go back to school? No?
I know my friends
People I
and
can see, they were like, no. I'm assuming for the people I can't see, they're not that excited. But.
I know that my friends are all complaining about it in Hangouts, so.
Alexander seems to be excited. All right. Okay, Alexander. All right. Somebody's excited. Emma, you not excited? I think Emma's like, we'll see if Emma's like, I'm not going to put nothing up. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm probably not that excited. Well, I hope you all have a great school year, and I hope you are able to find a way to interact with your classroom and the content, whether it's history or ELL or English or math or whatever you take. And I can tell a lot of you from what Audrey said, you all are you said you're taking AP, right? You took AP this summer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I hope you are able to figure out a way. I know a lot of teachers get, it's harder for AP because they have to stick to a little bit of a script, but hopefully you're able to feel engaged in your classes. So I'm sending you all positive vibes.
Thank you for the positive vibes.
I'm sad you won't be at school. I'm so sad that you're leaving, but I know you'll be awesome at boarding school, so it'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions?
If there's no other questions, then we can end the webinar here. Thank you so much, Ms. McKinney, for coming, and thank you everyone else for joining us. And well, have fun. School starts, I believe in Florida, school starts in like less than 2 weeks. So that's gonna be fun. But yeah, thank you all for coming and have a good weekend.